Welcome everyone, dear English teachers. Hello, hello everyone. Everyone, welcome dear English teachers in Peru and teachers around the world. Welcome to today's session and welcome to our ETiP Summer Webinar Series, Innovative Strategies for Teaching English and Artificial Intelligence. And today we have an amazing presentation. Today, we are honored to welcome a special guest, Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki from International House Lima. He will be sharing valuable information about this topic, getting the most out of your listening materials. And so it's time to know our community. English teacher in Peru is growing stronger every day. We are now more than 28,000 members and 34,000 followers on Facebook. We have a big community on WhatsApp, Telegram, YouTube, TikTok. Please, teachers, join us. And we are going to continue with this important part that is the instructions, okay? So you have to consider these instructions in order to participate in today's session. So please, teachers, type your questions in the comment section. The answer to your questions and comments will be replied by our guest speaker at the end of the webinar in the question time section. So don't forget that. And so important about the exit ticket, okay? When or before, in this case, before finishing the webinar, we will share a link to the exit ticket available for 15 minutes. And you will register your attendance, complete your details, including your email, and answer questions about this session to receive the presentation materials. You must answer more than half of the questions correctly, okay, teachers? Please, so pay attention to this session. Okay, now it's time to know our guest speaker. So, Mr. David Cuadros, are you there?
Hello, Miss. How you doing?
Thank you, dear David. Could you introduce the speaker, please?
Of course, please. It's going to be a pleasure. Please, could you... okay, nice. Okay, so guys, welcome to this session, to our webinar series. This topic, the topic for today is getting the most out of our listening materials. And in this case, our speaker will be Mr. Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki, who is the country manager at International House Lima, and he has worked in the ELT industry for over 10 years. He has been a coordinator and corporate manager at prestigious Language Institute as a consultant and regional academic coordinator at a prestigious publishing company. He's currently a speaking examiner for B2 First. He's currently pursuing Delta Module 1 and holds a bachelor degree in education by Universidad San Martín de Porres, as well as TKT certificates and C2 proficiency certificate. Please welcome Mr. Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I'm sure we're going to have a great, great afternoon together. Thank you, Marila. Thank you, David, for the kind introduction. So let's get this party started. Why don't we? Let me start sharing my screen. Good afternoon, everybody. By the way, in my phone, if you see me looking down here, I'm in the YouTube, so I might be like answering a couple of things along the way. So hello, everybody down there. All right, so let's get this started. Well, before we start with the topic per se, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do today. We are going to have a short introduction, which we are already in the middle of. Then we are going to have a demo lesson. But let me warn you, this is going to be a terrible demo lesson because the objective of this demo lesson is for me to show you some of the things that I've seen throughout the years. Yeah? I've been observing classes as a coordinator and also while I was working at Macmillan for over 6 years now. And there are several things that I've seen in some sessions and some lessons. So I'm going to do a demo lesson where I'm going to be doing a lot of things wrong. Please don't judge me. That is the objective. And you, through the chat, are going to give me feedback. You're going to tell me the things that I did wrong, the things that I should have done differently, and then we're going to discuss together some of the principles, some of the things that we should be doing when we are working with listening. And then we're going to do the demo again, but we are going to follow these principles, and you're going to see the difference between what you regularly, like what you saw in the first one, and what you see in the second one. All right? And then in the end, we are going to review a little bit. And at the very end, I'm going to give you my contact information so that if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you can contact me. I will do my best tonight and tomorrow also that if you leave any questions in the chat that we cannot answer during the live YouTube video, I'll try to answer them as best as I can. All right? So, are we ready to go? I see a lot of people are still connecting, saying good afternoon, good evening. I'm very glad. I see a couple familiar faces down there as well. Great. All right, so let's get this party started. So first, let me tell you a little bit about International House and who I am, so that you know why I'm here. International House is the largest association of language institutes in the world. This International House, as you can see in this map, is basically everywhere. We are present in over 60 countries. We have over 120 centers worldwide, and this is us here in IH Lima. I am the director of IH Lima. But before that, I used to work at Macmillan. I don't know if you know the publishing company. I think it's the best-selling one in Peru right now. I also used to work at Euridiomas in the corporate area, and I've been working in ELT now for over 10 years. And one of my specialties, I used to be a methodology teacher. And I used to be in charge of observing classes and giving feedback. I worked for Leo Mercado. You saw Leo Mercado last week. He used to be my academic director at Euro and at a previous place as well. So this is kind of my background, where I come from, and why I have some ideas that you might find useful. All right. So we're going to start, as we mentioned, with the first demo lesson. Here I have for you a Google Forms, and I have also a QR code so that you can log on and you can answer the questions. You're going to pretend to be my students. I don't think I'll ever had so many students at the same time. We have over 200 people connected right now. So you're going to be pretending to be my students. It is very important that you do this so that I get feedback on how well you do. Don't feel bad if you answer the questions wrong, because I am going to be teaching very badly right now. So don't feel bad. All right. I see a message here. Okay, I'm gonna be sending you the link so you can put it in YouTube. Give me 1 second. All right. Doo-doo-doo. And I am sending you the link in the chat. Excellent. So it's in YouTube as well. And you also have, of course, the QR code. All right. Don't worry, during the listening activity, the QR code is going to be up there as well. Okay, yeah, the link is being shared. The link is being shared. And we'll wait a second. What we're going to do, by the way, if some of you have already your B2 first, your FCEs, we are going to be doing an FCE listening activity. actually activity number 3. All right. So I think that is the link already in the chat? Let me see. I don't think the link is in the chat yet, so I'm going to wait a little bit for them to put it up there. And Mariela, if you can hear me, there's a second link that we're going to use in a little bit. I'm going to put the second link in the chat as well already, so you're ready for it when the time comes. All right, the link is in the chat now, so I'm going to give you a couple seconds. There it is. And it has been pinned, so it should be easy to find. All right. Here. Okay. All right, let's get going then. Don't worry if you cannot connect that quickly. Again, the objective of this is that it should not go very well. All right, let's go. So, this is a task. As you will hear 5 short extracts in which teenagers are talking about how an influencer on social media made them feel. For questions 1 to 5, choose from the list A to H how each speaker felt. Use letters only once. There are 3 extra letters which you do not need to use. All right, so let's start listening.
Track 20. Part 3. You will hear 5 short extracts in which teenagers are talking about how an influencer on social media made them feel. For questions 1 to 5, choose from the list A to H how each speaker felt. Use the letters only once. There are 3 extra letters which you do not need to use. You now have 30 seconds to look at part 3. Speaker 1.
I used to follow Jackson Z, who started off as a fashion influencer but then got into green issues. I only followed him for a few months because every day he was telling his followers something else that we should be doing to save the planet. It seemed like my efforts to be green were never enough, which started to bother me, as I believe protecting the environment is important. Occasionally, thinking about his posts even kept me awake at night, so I stopped following him and looked for someone more relaxing to follow.
Speaker 2.
This one influencer I used to follow wouldn't post stuff very often, but when she did, it was obvious that she just wanted to shock people so they'd respond to her. They were usually about crazy things she said she'd done, but actually, I'm pretty sure she didn't do half of the things she claimed. Sometimes she told people to go and do things that she thought were funny. She got loads of likes, loads of shares, but it got on my nerves after a while, which is why I don't follow her anymore.
Speaker 3.
Last summer, the singer Fly Nixon did some public sessions on a social media app, but they weren't her usual fun dance music events. They were to help people who tend to worry a lot. Apparently, she's like that herself. She was showing people some breathing exercises that she does every day to help stop her getting stressed. She also explains ways of thinking positively about things. After I'd watched these sessions, I noticed I was more relaxed, and thousands of people all around the world said the same thing in the comments.
Speaker 4.
One influencer I followed was Davina Brooks. She was brilliant at what she did, which was mostly promoting fashion clothing for teenagers my age. She made it seem like what she thought was the only opinion that mattered, and unfortunately, I started to believe her. So much so that I felt I needed to check my phone all the time so I could see what she was saying. I didn't want to miss anything. Then one day, I lost my phone, and after an initial mad panic, I realised I didn't need someone else to tell me what I thought.
Speaker 5.
Richie Jones was a social media star who focused on food and cooking. Lots of my friends were talking about him and how amazing he was, so I started following him. I wasn't disappointed. He was great. It's a real shame he stopped doing his videos to focus on TV work. He was so good at making it seem like eating healthily wasn't boring and difficult. It could actually be fun. So I'd say it's down to him that I've improved my diet. I learnt a few easy recipes from him, which I often make now for my family.
Now you will hear part 3, track 20.
All right, I know that in the actual test you hear twice, but in this version, we are only going to hear once. All right, so let's see what we got in the answers. Let me share Google Forms. It's okay. Don't worry if you don't understand. Part of the objective. So we have about 20 or 21. Okay, answers are pouring in. In the first one, we have pretty clearly, most people thought it was A. We have some people who thought it was E, some people thought it was B, a couple C, D, Fs, and nothing else. A couple of things are showing up. The second one has quite a variety. Nothing is above 30%. Again, don't feel bad. This is not how you should be doing a listening activity. If you arrived late, we were just doing a demo lesson on how not to do a listening activity, okay? So don't feel bad if you didn't get it completely. Question 3, we have a little bit of a, I wouldn't say consensus because it's 35%, but people sort of seem to agree that it might be letter D. In question 4, the most popular is letter A. Question 5, we have a pretty strong inkling that the answer was letter C. Right, it's almost a majority, almost a majority. We still have a great variety, but almost a majority is letter C. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And I'm going to tell you.
Track 20.
Sorry.
Part 3.
The actual answer for number 1 was F. The actual answer for number 2 was E. The actual answer for number 3 was D. 4 was A. And 5 was C. Those were the correct answers. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Now, imagine you were not teachers, you were my students. How would you feel after that activity? I'm going to give you a couple minutes for you to write in the chat. But tell me, how do you feel after that activity? After doing what we just did? Hi, Maria Adela. Hi, Beatriz. All right, so Kerwin says stressful. All right. Vanessa says a bit confused. Edilberto says frustrated. Natalie also says frustrated. Karina says it was a little difficult. Deli says stressed. Okay, so confused. Yes, stressed and confused. Those are the most common words. Yes. So what happens very often when we do a listening activity. Very often when we do a listening activity, we treat it like a reading activity. We tell students to listen to something. Then we say, okay, Angela, what was your answer for number 1? And Angela says A, and I might say, that's correct, or I might say, ooh, sorry, Angela, the actual answer was B, not A. I have a question for you. How does Angela know where her mistake was? Because if this is a reading activity, Angela can go back, read again, say, okay, I see where my mistake was, I understand where it is. But if it's a listening activity, and I just tell Angela, no, your answer is incorrect, it was letter B, how does she know why she made the mistake? Because in the end, what is important is not that our students know if they were right or not, but why they were right or not, so they can identify how to get better, how to improve. That is the objective. The objective is for our students to learn, right? To get better. So we did a bunch of things, not we, sorry. I did a bunch of things wrong in that activity. So do me a favor, the next part, write in the chat. What went wrong? What should I have done differently to improve your experience as a student? Again, we're imagining that you're students. And we already have Rocio writing that the activity was only repeated once. That is one factor. So please, everybody, write in the chat and write what I should have done differently in this listening activity. Okay, so again, Rocio says the listening was only repeated once. Brenda says that the feedback is very important. Yeah, we didn't have good feedback there. That's correct. Let me continue reading. Deli says we needed to give context. That's correct. Eliberto says that instructions were not clear. Very good. Ross says depends on the level. Yes, this was supposed to be a B2 level activity. So that would be for B2 level students. Giovanna says listening was once and instructions were not clear. Mariela says I should have introduced the topic or set up the scene before. Okay. Harry says I could have used the scripts. Very good. Maria says giving the prompt clearly. All right. We have a lot of things here. Yes, most people are focusing on instructions. Raul is talking about keywords and alternatives. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Karen talks about predictions. All right. Agridulce says teaching vocabulary first. All right. So we have a bunch of the pre-listening. We have a bunch of things. Ooh, and I like this here. Marlene says giving support through scaffolding. Yes, keywords, structures, etc., etc., etc. All right. So let's move on and let's look at some of the principles here. So we are going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic principles that we have when we talk about listening activities. Yes, we're going to talk about the importance. Somebody mentioned it before already. The importance of ICQs, the importance of predictions, the importance of scaffolding, how to use the justifying answers. This I haven't seen people mention this one. We're going to talk about Bandura's self-efficacy theory, and we're going to talk about how to use all the resources because well, that was the title of the talk today, right? Maximizing your resources, right? So, what are ICQs? Does anybody remember what ICQs are? Anybody remember their ICQs? Yes. ICQs are also called information comprehension questions. Yes. There are two types of comprehension checks. Yes, or instructional checking questions. Okay, same idea. Thank you, Karen. Instructional checking questions. There's ICQs and there's the CCQs. CCQs are content confirmation questions. Now, and yes, instructional checking questions. Thank you very much. So there are many ICQs that you can use. But what are the most basic ICQs? And what's the one that everybody uses, but you should never use? There are two that you should always use, and one that you should never use. Do you remember? Write in the chat, please. So there's a very basic ICQ that we use a lot in primary, low-level primary especially, and there's a ICQ that we usually use in secondary. And there's a question that almost all the teacher use, and you should not. I'm sorry, I make you write a lot. I like participation. So anybody? What's the question let's start with the question that we should not use. Oh, I saw Rocio already there. The question we should never use is, do you understand? The question we should never use is, do you understand? Why? Because the answer to do you understand is always, yes, teacher. It doesn't matter if they understand or not. They will normally say, yes, teacher. So that's the question we should avoid at all costs, all the time. The two basic questions, if you're in low-level primary, do we have to listen or do we have to read? Do we have to, I don't know, play or do we have to be silent? Very simple, low-level primary. And the most basic question we can use in higher level, what do we have to do? Simple. What do we have to do? So you give your instructions and you ask, okay, Mariela, what do we have to do? Simple. In my opinion, teaching is like baking. We first have to learn how to make a vanilla cake. And when we're masters at the vanilla cake, we can do tres leches, selva negra, whatever other things. First, simple. What do we have to do? Or in low levels, do we have to do this or do we have to do that? Don't complicate life. There are other questions you can use as well, but don't complicate life and never do you understand. All right? Okay. All right. So that's about ICQs. Yes. They are a vital form of scaffolding, basically. And you always have to do that when you do a listening activity. You should always do ICQs. But with listening, it's more important. Because if you give students 10 minutes to read, and then you start to circulate, and you notice a student is lost, you can repeat the instructions and help the student. The same in writing, the same in pair work in speaking. But if you notice that a student is lost, and you already are in the middle of the listening, can you still help the student? It's too late. So when we have a listening, we have to make absolutely sure that all students understand what we're doing before we start with the audio. It's absolutely vital. Okay? All right. Let's move on. If anybody has any questions, remember you put in the chat. No problem. Okay, let's move on. Wait. Something some people mentioned is predictions. Yes? I have a question. Even in an international exam, which is the most difficult type of thing our students are going to do we give them time before we start with the audio? Yes. Even in international exams, even in C1, even in C2 level, there's a moment where it tells you, you have either 15 seconds, 30 seconds. I think there are some that's even 1 minute. You have 1 minute to look at the task first. You should never give students an audio and after the audio, give them the questions. Because if you do that, you're testing not only their listening ability, but also their memory. And that's not meant to be that part of the task. If I play right now the radio in Spanish for you, with a weather prediction for Peru for the entire week, and after I finish, I ask you, what's the weather going to be like in Piura on Friday? It is very likely you will not remember because you were not paying attention to Piura on Friday. You were not paying attention to anything because you didn't know what to pay attention to. So normally, when we listen, we always know what we're listening for. So always make sure that you give the students the questions before, and not only the questions, but you let them look at the questions so they can start predicting what they think the answer might be. They get themselves in the mindset, they activate their previous schemata, etc., etc., etc. They might notice there's a grammatical structure that they don't know. They might notice there are some words they're not sure about. Yes, it has great benefits in all aspects to make sure that they have the questions first and they have a little bit of time. The definition of scaffolding, Elizabeth, yes, but that is actually the next thing. So, great prediction, Elizabeth. So, okay, what is scaffolding? A long time ago, Vygotsky came up with the theory of the zone of proximal development. What is that? In Vygotsky's theory, there are things that the learners can do unaided. So without help, I can do alone. If you ask me to change a light bulb, I can do it alone. I can do unaided. There are certain things I cannot do. If you ask me to install the electric system of a house, I cannot install the electric system of a house. But there are some things that I can do with help. Those things that I can do with help, that is called the zone of proximal development. Yes, I can install a socket. I cannot install a socket alone. I need somebody to hold a chair or a ladder for me, or whatever, and I can install with help. That help that you receive to be able to do those things that you would not be able to do alone, that is called scaffolding. And as Rocio writes in the chat, in Spanish, that is called andamiaje. Yes? And by the way, scaffolding does not necessarily come from the teacher. Scaffolding can come from our learners' peers, yes, the other learners. So here we have a question in the chat. What scaffolding can we use for listening? There are many, many, many answers, so please write in the chat. What scaffolding can we use for listening? And as I mentioned, I'm reading the chat on YouTube, so I'll be incorporating your answers here. And hello in Buenos Aires. That is far. All right, Ivana mentioned pre-teaching vocabulary. I think I forgot to put that one here. So good, Ivana, pre-teaching vocabulary. What else? All right, so talking about the topic, giving context. Good. Using pictures. Good. So the majority talk about pre-teaching vocabulary. Okay, but there's something else. What else can I do? Yeah, so building learning using previous knowledge. Okay, that is kind of scaffolding. So people mentioning pictures and vocabulary. Anything else other than pictures and vocabulary? Anything other than? All right, brainstorming ideas. Okay, that could be predicting. Okay, so helping with videos. Okay, yes, visual cues will help. Demonstrations. All right, all right. So we have a bunch of things here. Context, pictures. Your guys are mentioning a lot of things. Let's show you what I have. So first, one thing that nobody has mentioned that for me is absolutely vital is the pair work, right? One thing that we should always do in listening activities before we compare as a class is let students compare in pairs. This helps with confidence. I don't know if I'm right or not, but if I have the same answer as Angela and Mariela, I am more sure that my answer is probably correct. But it also helps me notice, okay, you know what? I have a different answer from Angela and Mariela. Maybe there's something wrong here. Let me listen again. Maybe Angela or Mariela can tell me what they heard, and that will help me. Another thing, listen for a second or third time. Students are not going to get everything the first time. It's normal. They might have questions, so that will help them. Right now, nobody mentioned it, but before somebody mentioned, you can use this script. I do not recommend using the script the first time you listen, because if you use the script the first time you listen, then it's a reading activity. It no longer is a listening activity. But you can use it later. You can replay difficult parts. So if I notice that everybody got the answers right for number 1, number 2, but number 3 we had a 50-50, I can replay that part and point out, did you hear this here? Did you hear this here? Vital thinking time. We do not give our students enough thinking time. Let them process the information. If you're going to play twice, don't play once and twice immediately. Play once, let them think, let them talk to their partners, let them consider, and then think again. listen again. In prompts, yes, there are several prompts we can use, especially for this part where we discuss. We're going to talk more specifically about the prompts later. Now, several of you mentioned pre-teaching vocabulary as well. That is very important, very, very important, especially when an audio is at a higher level than some of your students, or you're using some vocabulary that hasn't been used in a couple of months. So yes, pre-teaching vocabulary is vital as well as giving context with predictions at the beginning. All right. Yes, sharing ideas, work in pairs. Yes, pairs, groups. Somebody mentioned skimming. Skimming is for reading. Skimming is not something that you do when listening. We'll talk about that at the end. All right. Now, talking about prompts. My favorite thing to do that I rarely see in classes is justifying answers. Let me explain first why it's important, and then I explain how to do it. If I ask, Angela, what's your answer for number 1? And Angela says A. It's a multiple choice. Do I know if Angela has the correct answer? It is possible that Angela guessed. It is possible that Angela compared with Mariela. Mariela said A, and Angela repeated A, but she has no idea. The only way for me to know that Angela understood is if Angela justifies her answer. So in this case, I wrote Jose, no? But Angela, what's your answer for number 1? Oh yeah, sorry, this is what we usually get. What we should want to get is something like this. No, Angela, what's your answer for number 1? I think the answer for number 1 is A, because the boy mentioned mother. And then somebody else can say either I agree or oh, I think the answer is B, because la 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 la. So this way, we can guarantee that the students are actually understanding. And not only that, we make this now an integrated skills activity, because now students are practicing listening and practicing speaking. And this becomes a critical thinking activity, because students have to understand the reason for their answers. So this very simple prompt can make a basic listening activity into something much more powerful. And by the way, this can be used with writing as well. Why is it more important in listening than writing? Because in writing, sorry, not writing. Sorry, in reading. Why is it more important in listening than reading? Because in reading, student can say, because here, teacher, it says here, teacher. But in listening, they can't. So now it means they have to take notes, really understand. Yes? And again, as I mentioned before, vanilla cake before, I don't know, selva negra. This is the most basic prompt. I assure you, you can do better prompts, and specifically better prompts for the specific listenings that you are doing. But this is the vanilla cake version that works with every audio. Every audio. Yes? All right, let's move on. Self-efficacy. Has anybody ever, I love this picture, so cute. Has anybody ever heard of the self-efficacy theory by Bandura? Anybody know what it is? Anybody? No Googling or ChatGPTing. um, so, quickly, I'm going to paraphrase. Don't kill me, Mr. Bandura. The self-efficacy theory says that if you think you're good at something, you will become better. Let me explain this in sports terms. If I think I'm a good striker, a good attacker in football, every time I touch the ball, I'm going to try to advance and shoot the ball because I think I'm good. That means I'm going to improve because I keep trying to shoot the ball, and I will become better because I'm constantly trying and practicing. The same works with your language students. If I think I'm good at English, every time my teacher asks a question, I'm going to raise my hand because I think I'm good. And that means I will practice my speaking more. I will get more feedback because every time I raise my hand, it doesn't matter if I was right or wrong, my teacher's going to give me feedback, right? And that will help me learn. I will constantly participate, and therefore I will become better. And it's a circle because if I become better, then I'm going to continue thinking that I'm good, and I will continue participating, and I will continue practicing, etc., 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 and I will always be improving. The opposite is also true. If I think I'm bad, I never participate, I never get feedback, the teacher doesn't notice me, and I don't improve. That is the main idea of the self-efficacy theory. Now, my job today is not to teach you theory. Theory is boring. But if we now know that confidence helps our students improve, then it is our job to improve our students' confidence. Because I know that if they are more confident, they will practice more and then they will improve. So, question for the chat once more. How can we help our students' confidence? Okay. So yes, encouraging them. Here, you have to be a little bit careful. You want to encourage, but not overpraise. What does it mean to overpraise? Is when I tell students, good, every time they do something, even when it's not good. If I tell my students everything is good, they will not know when it is and when it's not. So encouraging, 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 encouraging. I see a lot of encouraging. An important part of what we have to do is we have to make them feel success at the end of our activities. They have to feel that they got the right answers. It is better if I play the audio in the listening activity 3 times and my students get 80% of the questions right than if I play 1 time, they get 50%, but I tell them the answers. They don't need that. They don't need me to tell them the answers. They need me to give them as many chances as I can, giving them as much feedback as I can, and let them arrive at the answer. And then I tell them, you see, you can do it. Okay, your job next time is doing it after 2 listenings instead of after 3. But you can do it. It's not, Angelita, you got A, it was B. I'm sorry. Keep trying. No. We have to give them everything so they can come up with the answer. That's what's going to give them this power. It's like, okay, I can do it. I'm not great yet, but I can do it. Yes? What you're saying is correct. Encouraging is important. Sakihi just mentioned celebrating achievement is important, motivating is important, but the most important thing is let them be successful. They have to feel success, and they will only feel success if they get the right answers. All right? So we have to do that. All right. Last but not least, I have a question. What are the two most powerful, most important resources you have at your disposal when doing listening? There are two huge resources that my material gives me when I do listening. And it doesn't matter if you're using Macmillan, Cambridge, National Geographic, Pearson, whatever, or if you're using something you downloaded from the internet. There are two things. Nelly mentioned the audio. Yes, the audio is a huge resource. And a lot of people use it only once. We have to exploit it. Use it twice, 3 times, as many times as you need. So the audio is one. What's the other one? Somebody mentioned videos. Okay, yes. If it's a video, yes. But if it's just an audio, if it doesn't have a video, there's one more. There's one more thing that usually comes with the audio. And if your book does not come with that, change your book. The script. Ooh, and just as I mentioned, Veruska mentioned that as well. Thank you, Veruska Torres. The script. The script is a great resource because it allows you to listen and look at what the students are listening. Now, what's a vital rule? When should we never use the script? When should we never use the script? Yes, we should never use the script for the first time you listen. Because if you're using the script the first time you listen, then students will be reading instead of listening. So you listen the first time, and then if you consider it necessary, you can use the script for the second or the third listening. You can also download the script, eliminate some words, etc., and transform this into vocabulary activity, grammar activity. That's for a different day. But you can also do that. All right. By the way, some people are writing script, some people are writing transcript. Quick information. What's the difference? If I write something and then I speak, this is a script. If first there's an audio and then somebody copies what people write, this is a transcript. Short, small difference between script and transcript. Okay, sorry, I get distracted. All right. So now that we've talked about all these different principles, all these things we have to do a good listening activity, now we're going to do a listening activity again. We're going to do the same activity, not the same audio, the same type of activity, but this time we are going to follow everything that we would normally do in a real class with a good listening activity. Some of the things I cannot do on Zoom, so I'm going to describe what I would do in a classroom. All right, because nowadays, 2025, most of us no longer teach online, we teach in classes. So we're going to talk about how I would handle this in a class, or at least in a regular Zoom and not on YouTube. Okay. So we have a new link for Google Forms. Please click on the link or use the QR code. Mariela, in the chat, we have already the link. So if you could please put it again in YouTube and pin it. Please do not click on the one that is pinned now. Wait a second. Yes, yes. We are sharing the link. Patience, patience. Just like the last one, you will only see numbers and letters. Let me know, Mariela Angelita, when it's already in YouTube. I think Mariela just logged off from here from Zoom. So Angelita, help. Oh, there you are. All right, it's there, and I'm sure they're gonna pin it in a second. So please, all right, it's pinned now. Please click on the link, and we're gonna start. We're gonna give people a couple minutes, and then we're gonna start. It's not the same link. It looks the same, but because it's the same type of activity, but it's not the same link. All right, let's advance. So in this case, we are going to hear 5 different speakers. Yes. And here there are 8 activities they could be doing. Yes. You have to choose from the list A to H what advice each speaker gives about drawing cartoons. All right. So we're going to be hearing an audio about drawing cartoons. All right. It's going to be 5 short audios we're going to hear first. Speaker 1, then speaker 2, then speaker 3, then speaker 4, then speaker 5. And you have to match once. Okay. Again, I'm pretending I'm in a real class. I don't know if you're connected. So, Angela, what do we have to do? And then hopefully Angela would say something like, we have to listen. Okay, how many people are going to speak, Angela? 5 people. All right. Can we use the same letter 2 times? No, we can't. And then you ask a second student, etc., until you're sure everybody knows what they're going to do. Now, let's listen.
You'll hear 5 short extracts in which teenagers are talking about their love of drawing cartoons. For questions 19 to 23, choose from the list A to H what advice each speaker gives about drawing cartoons. Use the letters only once. There are 3 extra letters which you do not need to use. You now have 30 seconds to look at part 3. Speaker 1.
When I was younger, I'd draw cartoons on my mum's notebooks, the ones she always took to her office. I knew she'd show them to other people to see what they thought, so I worked really hard to get the drawings right, even if I wasn't happy with them at first. They weren't particularly sophisticated drawings, But starting with quite basic figures, drawn with a few lines, helped me experiment with drawing movement, and so on. And I'd recommend that to anyone doing cartoons. Since then, my style's developed, but I've never pushed it. I'm always just happy to see where my imagination will take me, and my pens and pencils.
Speaker 2.
My dad's an artist, so when I was young he taught me how to draw, and I've done it ever since, using crayons, paints, and whatever makes a mark on paper to draw cartoons. But I really started improving when I began looking more carefully at my surroundings, people in the street, animals, shops, whatever, to give me inspiration for my drawings. That's the key to developing good cartoon drawings, I think. And everything seems to flow much more easily once you've got that initial inspiration. Of course, you can look in comics for ideas, but if you're just copying someone else's work, you'll never be as happy with the end result.
Speaker 3.
I've been working with another classmate to draw cartoons to be used at school. We've done cartoons of other students, the classrooms and whatever else we see, and used them on things like concert posters and the school magazine. They've been really popular thanks to my art teacher. She got me to develop my drawing by using things like big sheets of paper and ink pens. That was important as my cartoons would never have got any better if I'd just kept using the same old pencils and notepads. So that's what I tell people wanting to take it up. I get totally different effects now and loads of new ideas for cartoons.
Speaker 4.
I'd love to see my cartoons in a big, well-known comic one day, but that's unlikely at the moment, as my cartoons aren't always very good. I'm determined to carry on trying, though. That's the only way you improve, I'd say. I'll redraw a cartoon a number of times before I'm satisfied, and my best mate will always tell me honestly what's wrong, even though I never ask him. But my style's slowly developing. That's not really important to me, but I notice it when I look back at my early cartoons. Now I've moved on from doing simple line drawings to being bigger and bolder, and they really get people's attention.
Speaker 5.
I get a lot of great ideas for cartoons just walking to school in the mornings, believe it or not. I'm constantly observing people and making notes of stuff that's happening. I know that doesn't work for everyone though. Cartoonists get their inspiration from lots of different sources. But I often join up with a mate from school. He writes some great stories and I add pictures to them using whatever materials I can find. As a team, we're much more imaginative, so I definitely suggest that as a way of producing stuff, even if you feel your drawings are still fairly basic.
All right. So at this point, what I would normally do is ask my students to compare with a partner. And here, depending on time, after comparing with a partner, and after I circulated and heard if they were on the right track or not, I would play a second time. Or, if I don't have the time or I think they're doing fairly well, I go to the board, and in the board, I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I encourage students to go and put their answers on the board. Now, important, I encourage students to put all the answers that they think are right on the board. So I might have 1, and next to the 1, I might have an A, a B, a C, an E, and I will not tell students yet whether it's correct or wrong, because what I'm encouraging is all students to go and put their answers up there, because that's the only way I get feedback on how all students are doing and not just the ones that are more, I don't know, less shy. Yes. So we're going to do something similar, but with the Google Forms this time. So we have 48 people who have answered so far. And as we can see, number 1, we have a great variety of answers. Number 2, we have a great variety of answers. Number 3, It looks like letter A seems to be the most popular. Number 4, again, great variety. Number 5, also great variety. Oh, we're having a lot of more people submitting. Okay, let's wait a second. All right, so we have a great variety in the majority of them. The only one where we have a little bit of a consensus is number 3, where more people are answering letter A. Okay, so let's do this. In number 1, yes, in number 1, the top 3 answers are C, B, and A and E are tied. C, B, and A and E are tied as the top 4 answers in number 1. I can tell you that one of these 4 answers is correct. I am not going to tell you which. I'm only going to tell you that it's one of those 4. Number 2, our top answer is F, second answer is C, third answer is B. I'm going to tell you that one of those 3 is correct. F, C, or B. Number 3, our top answers are A, D, and C. Again, one of those 3 is correct. A, C, and D. Number 4, our top answers are E, G, and D. Again, I will tell you one of those 3 is the correct answer. And number 5, top answers are B, A, and C. And again, I will tell you that one of those 3 is the correct answer. Now, we are going to go back to the audio. Some people are asking me to zoom, so let me zoom a little bit. I cannot, I don't know if I can, there you are. We're going to go back to the audio and we're going to listen again. But now you know you have a little bit narrower answers, so you can work on that a little bit better. All right, let's see if we can do this with a zoom. Let's see. Oh, sorry. There.
Other people to 1. We'll hear part 3 again. Speaker 1.
When I was younger, I'd draw cartoons on my mum's notebooks, the ones she always took to her office. I knew she'd show them to other people to see what they thought, so I worked really hard to get the drawings right, even if I wasn't happy with them at first. They weren't particularly sophisticated drawings, but starting with quite basic figures, drawn with a few lines, helped me experiment with drawing movement, and so on. And I'd recommend that to anyone doing cartoons. Since then, my style's developed, but I've never pushed it. I'm always just happy to see where my imagination will take me, and my pens and pencils.
Speaker 2.
My dad's an artist, so when I was young he taught me how to draw, and I've done it ever since, using crayons, paints, and whatever makes a mark on paper to draw cartoons. But I really started improving when I began looking more carefully at my surroundings, people in the street, animals, shops, whatever, to give me inspiration for my drawings. That's the key to developing good cartoon drawings, I think. And everything seems to flow much more easily once you've got that initial inspiration. Of course, you can look in comics for ideas, but if you're just copying someone else's work, you'll never be as happy with the end result.
Speaker 3.
I've been working with another classmate to draw cartoons to be used at school. We've done cartoons of other students, the classrooms, and whatever else we see, and used them on things like concert posters and the school magazine. They've been really popular thanks to my art teacher. She got me to develop my drawing by using things like big sheets of paper and ink pens. That was important as my cartoons would never have got any better if I just kept using the same old pencils and notepads. So that's what I tell people wanting to take it up. I get totally different effects now and loads of new ideas for cartoons.
Speaker 4.
I'd love to see my cartoons in a big, well-known comic one day, but that's unlikely at the moment, as my cartoons aren't always very good. I'm determined to carry on trying, though. That's the only way you improve, I'd say. I'll redraw a cartoon a number of times before I'm satisfied, and my best mate will always tell me honestly what's wrong, even though I never ask him. But my style's slowly developing. That's not really important to me, but I notice it when I look back at my early cartoons. Now I've moved on from doing simple line drawings to being bigger and bolder, and they really get people's attention.
Speaker 5.
I get a lot of great ideas for cartoons just walking to school in the mornings, believe it or not. I'm constantly observing people and making notes of stuff that's happening. I know that doesn't work for everyone though. Cartoonists get their inspiration from lots of different sources. But I often join up with a mate from school. He writes some great stories and I add pictures to them using whatever materials I can find. As a team, we're much more imaginative, so I definitely suggest that as a way of producing stuff, even if you feel your drawings are still fairly basic.
That is the end of part 3. Now turn to part 4.
All right. So normally, in this part, what I would do is ask students again to compare with a partner, but this time I would add, remember the prompt for justifying your answer? I think the answer to number 1 is A because he said, la la la, he mentioned. Give it a little bit more. Then ask students again to go to the board, select the answers that they think is correct. And here, if we have a consensus, we're finishing. If we do not have a consensus, and I have the time, we continue listening. Remember what I mentioned? What I can do now is I will not play the listening again, the whole thing. Just the numbers that we have problems with. I listen to those again. I tell them to pay attention to specific words. Or, remember we mentioned what's the other important resource that we have? That's correct. The other important resource that we have is the script. If after the second listening you're still having issues, now we play with the script. The final objective is at the end, all students, or the great majority of students, feel that they got the answers. No matter how much scaffolding we put in, we never told them what the answer was. They came up with the answer. Right? And at the very, very, very end, how do you finish a listening activity? So you got all the answers from all the students. You have the correct answers on the board. How do you finish a listening activity? All right, I see a couple people answering. You finish the listening activity by playing the audio one last time. Why? Because some students might have gotten 4 out of the 5, but they didn't get all 5. So because they didn't get all 5, they might not know why one of them is incorrect. You play the audio again so they understand if they had a problem, where their problem was. And that's how we're going to finish now with this activity. I'm going to tell you the answers. I am very sorry. This is going to be very basic. I forgot this in my PowerPoint, so excuse the bad handwriting. This is C. This is F. This is A. This is G, and this is B. And if you're not sure why those are the answers, don't worry. We play the audio one last time.
Right. When I was younger, I'd draw cartoons on my mum's notebooks, the one she always took to her office. I knew she'd show them to other people to see what they thought, so I worked really hard to get the drawings right, even if I wasn't happy with them at first. They weren't particularly sophisticated drawings, but starting with quite basic figures, drawn with a few lines, helped me experiment with drawing movement, and so on. And I'd recommend that to anyone doing cartoons. Since then, my style's developed, but I've never pushed it. I'm always just happy to see where my imagination will take me, and my pens and pencils.
Speaker 2.
My dad's an artist, so when I was young he taught me how to draw, and I've done it ever since, using crayons, paints, and whatever makes a mark on paper to draw cartoons. But I really started improving when I began looking more carefully at my surroundings, people in the street, animals, shops, whatever, to give me inspiration for my drawings. That's the key to developing good cartoon drawings, I think. And everything seems to flow much more easily once you've got that initial inspiration. Of course, you can look in comics for ideas, but if you're just copying someone else's work, you'll never be as happy with the end result.
Speaker 3.
I've been working with another classmate to draw cartoons to be used at school. We've done cartoons of other students, the classrooms, and whatever else we see, and used them on things like concert posters and the school magazine. They've been really popular thanks to my art teacher. She got me to develop my drawing by using things like big sheets of paper and ink pens. That was important, as my cartoons would never have got any better if I'd just kept using the same old pencils and notepads. So that's what I'd tell people wanting to take it up. I get totally different effects now and loads of new ideas for cartoons.
Speaker 4.
I'd love to see my cartoons in a big, well-known comic one day, but that's unlikely at the moment, as my cartoons aren't always very good. I'm determined to carry on trying, though. That's the only way you improve, I'd say. I'll redraw a cartoon a number of times before I'm satisfied, and my best mate will always tell me honestly what's wrong, even though I never ask him. But my style's slowly developing. That's not really important to me, but I notice it when I look back at my early cartoons. Now I've moved on from doing simple line drawings to being bigger and bolder, and they really get people's attention.
Speaker 5.
I get a lot of great ideas for cartoons just walking to school in the mornings, believe it or not. I'm constantly observing people and making notes of stuff that's happening. I know that doesn't work for everyone, though. Cartoonists get their inspiration from lots of different sources. But I often join up with a mate from school. He writes some great stories, and I add pictures to them, using whatever materials I can find. As a team, we're much more imaginative, so I definitely suggest that as a way of producing stuff, even if you feel your drawings are still fairly basic.
So, after all that, how do you feel the second time around? It's exactly the same thing. FCE listening part 3. It's a different audio. But if you are here from the beginning and you saw the first demo activity compared to the last demo activity, how do you feel? All right, I see some thumbs up, some good, some better, much better. All right. That's the main thing. In the end, unless this is the final exam, I don't care so much about how many answers you got right the first time around, the second time around, the third time around. I care that at the end of the activity, you feel like, okay, this is something I can do. So that the next time you're confident, you keep trying harder, and you keep improving. That is what we need. We don't need easier tasks. Yes, some teachers sometimes do very easy tasks so everybody feels good. We don't need to just give them the answers. We need to make sure that we give them all the scaffolding we can give them. So, to close up for today, let's do a quick review. What are some of the principles that we talked about today that we should apply when teaching listening? All right, give it step by step. Okay, good. Yeah, that is also important. It's better to give the instructions part by part instead of giving the whole instructions at the beginning. Okay, what else? Yes, our ICQs are very important. If you were not here earlier, those are the instructional comprehension questions. So making sure they know what they have to do. We talked about scaffolding. Thank you, Herbert. Yeah, okay, daily mentions. Think about all the students. We didn't talk about that too much, but that's important. At least mentions predicting. The prompt, remember the prompt for comparing, for justifying your answers. By the way, as I mentioned, last week you had Leo Mercado here. He's actually the one who taught me those prompts for justifying your answers. So Leo, if you see this video, shout out. Hello, Leo. Maria mentioned pre, during, and after listening. Very good. Yes, monitoring, justifying. All right, scaffolding. All right, so those are the majority of things that we have mentioned. Remember, this video is on YouTube, so if there's something you missed, you were late or whatever, you can watch it again as many times as you want, or until you're tired of my voice. Shout out to Cambridge, by the way. Those of the material here is from Compact B2 for schools. So if you found that interesting, you can check that out. Oh, Marlene, thank you. Collaborative work. That is very important. And Hebert never asked, do you understand? Very good. And Maria, self-efficacy. And Alberto, again, self-efficacy. Very good. So now we are almost finished with me. There's a couple things we're going to do, the raffle, etc. But if you want to contact me, here is my work number. And here is my email address. And if you want to look up IH Lima, there it is ihlima.com. I am more than happy to answer some questions, talk to you, whatever it is that you need. I do not usually answer calls from people I don't know, but if you write to me, I guarantee I will answer. All right. So thank you. I don't remember who comes in here, Angela or Mariela. Angela, hello.
Hi again, and thank you so much. Actually, on behalf of English teachers in Peru, we are deeply grateful for your generous contribution, for your engaging and insightful presentation. Actually, for making this positive impact in our community, and everything that you have shared. I'm sure they're going to be using it. I am going to be using it. And we have some questions here for you. Just give me a second.
Sure.
I have a question from...
Very happy to be here. All right, Angela, tell me.
Sorry. You wanted to say something?
No, I was just saying that I am also very happy to be here. I'm grateful for the invitation. It is always very good to connect with fellow teachers. It's been a while, I think more than a year since I had a webinar, so I'm very, very glad to be here.
Thanks again. So now I'm gonna go with the questions. The first question we have is from Ms. Lisette Pastor. She asks, what strategies can we use to have students justify their answers?
All right. So the first thing that we should understand when we have students justify their answers is their cognitive level. Because again, you're giving reasons. You cannot ask a student, I don't know, first, second grade in primary to justify a complex answer. My recommendation is that if you are not used to doing this, you start with reading instead of listening. Because in reading, justifying answers is much easier than in listening. In reading, you just say, no, I think the answer is letter A because it's on line 5, it says, and they just have to read line 5. So they're just literally pointing at the place where they got their answer. It's also easier to start with multiple choice questions than with open questions. So I would start with multiple choice in reading, and once my students master that, I can advance into listening, advance into more complex types of answers. I can even start justifying my opinions, right? That's something else that you can justify. You can justify anything, but start with the easiest, most basic, which would be a multiple choice answer in a reading text. You're muted.
I couldn't open my mic. Thank you so much for your answer. There, we actually have one more question from Ms. Evelyn Anaya. She asks, how many words can we include as a pre-teaching vocabulary? As for pre-teaching vocabulary, I think.
Miss Evelyn, hello. Okay, here there is less research than there is in reading. Sorry, there's less research in listening than there is in reading. So let me talk about reading first a little bit, and then we move on to listening. Okay? So I am sure the majority of you are familiar between the difference between intensive and extensive reading. If you are not, extensive reading is when you read for fun, a magazine, a book, whatever. Intensive reading is when you read for work, for class, anything work related. Research indicates that for students to enjoy and understand a text when they're reading extensively, again, for fun, they need to understand about 97% of the words in the text. Whereas when you read for work or whatever like that, intensive reading, you need to understand about 90% of the text. Yes? So when you are doing pre-teaching vocabulary, your job is to get that understanding to 90%. So you have to look at the text. If you think that more than 10% of the words are words that they don't understand, you need to pre-teach enough so that we get to that 90%. Don't pre-teach everything, because understanding meaning from context is a very important sub-skill that students need to have. So don't pre-teach everything. Just make sure that they get to that 90%. Now, listening is more difficult than reading, so I haven't found research on exact percentages, but I usually try to go a little bit more than in reading. So, and I also try to see if there are words that maybe they know, but they don't know the pronunciation too. So I try to get to 92, 93%, just about.
I have one more question from Ms. Maite. She asks, do you have any recommendation to work with large groups?
Okay, so if I'm working with large groups, there's a very big difference, which is whether I have internet tools or not. If I have internet tools, for example, what I just did with Google Forms, as you know, is free. If you don't have that, then other tools that are useful um, are Socrative and things like that. Socrative is my absolute favorite. But if you're working, let's say, in a national school and things like that, where you don't have internet tools, my recommendation is have students work in groups, like in group tables and things like that, so that they come up with the answer there, and then one representative goes to the board. Because if everybody goes to the board, it becomes a mess.
Thank you so much again.
Wait.
Those are all the questions.
Before I go, I have to add something else there about the 90%, 95%, because I know the majority of English teachers in the world are not math teachers, and that 90%, 95% might sound weird. So let me show you 1 second a nice tool that I have that will help you with that. Okay? And when I say I have, it's absolutely not mine. So this is the NGSL profiler. This is from the new general service list. Mariela, if you could copy this, please, for the YouTube chat. This is a nice tool where you choose. There's a different kind of things here. So let's see, general English. Where is this? Okay, so this one doesn't have. Okay, whatever. I choose the general service list has different lists of words depending on how far it is, and I can copy any text, paste. Oops. Copy any text, paste here, and it will tell me how many of these words are within this list, within this level, and how many of words are out of the level, and it tells me specifically which ones. This has changed. In the past, there was one that was to CFR. I'm going to look for the one for CFR. But it tells me which words are higher level, which ones are proper nouns. For example, James, York, Letitia should be. So it shows me what words I should be pre-teaching. Right? How many are proper nouns, how many are out of level, how many are out of the list, etc., and how much is covered. Here, according to this level, I'm covering 80%. So that means that I would have to teach about 10%. So probably means that this text is too high for my students, right? So this is a, and there's this other tool here, the End World Profiler. 1 second, let's see if this works. So these are fun tools that you can use, especially, there you are. This is the one I was looking for originally, because this has the CEFR. So let's say my students are B1 level. I paste this. I click go. So this is, sorry, it has ads. So this is here. And it tells me how many words are out of level for B1. It tells me right now we have 11% out of selected level. My coverage is only 75%. So that tells me that I should not be using this text for a B1 level class. This is extremely useful if you're not using teaching material. If you're not using books, you're finding your own readings. Because the most difficult part for me as a teacher is to try to guess whether this is the right level or not. I don't have the ability to guess that. So these tools are amazing, and it will help you a lot when finding readings for your students. But this was about listening. Do the same with the script. You do the same with the script. That's it. All right. All right. Sorry. Back. There was a small parent.
That was perfect. Thank you so much again.
No
I'm
problem.
really grateful. Thank you. Now it's time for us to go. There, Mariela is gonna go with the next part. Thanks again.
Angelita. Okay, thank you, dear Angelita. A huge thank you to the more than 500 teachers who join us today. Most of you connected from Peru, but we're also grateful to those who join from other countries, Mexico, Ecuador, Argentina, Colombia. Thank you, teacher. Your dedication to learning and professional growth is truly inspiring, dear teachers. Thank you, dear Juan, for this amazing presentation, for today's insightful session. Thank you. And now we are going to continue with one of the best parts of this webinar. Quiero agradecerte, querido Juan, por todo lo compartido para empezar el día de hoy. Un fuerte, fuerte aplauso de parte de toda la audiencia, creo yo, y aquí todos los administradores que estamos presentes, a Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki, representando a International House Lima, porque tengo la gran noticia para todos ustedes, queridos maestros que están conectados en YouTube en esta sesión, que han tenido la amabilidad, la nobleza de el día de hoy compartir con nosotros algunas becas para poderlas sortear. Pero antes de eso vamos a conversar un poquito, querido Juan, te voy a robar unos minutos más sobre la propuesta que tiene International House Lima para todos los profesores de Perú. Previo a esto, para que entiendan bien, queridos maestros, la dinámica, para que quede clara y no haya dudas, ¿ya? Time to speak Spanish now. Por favor, vamos a compartir brevemente el link del Exit Ticket. Es necesario que para ello coloquen, por favor, de forma correcta su correo electrónico, ¿sí? Y también que respondan las 3 preguntitas que están relacionadas a la sesión. Van a tener pocos minutos para esto, unos 10 minutos probablemente. Si tienen alguna duda, con alguna pregunta, vamos a ver la posibilidad para quienes nos acompañan al final de volverlo a abrir unos minutitos, pero tienen que estar ahí muy atentos. Vamos a tenerlo abierto solo por 10 minutos debido a que con toda la data del formulario que van a llenar en este momento para su asistencia, vamos a realizar el sorteo de las becas que el día de hoy International House Lima, a través de Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki, está dando para nuestra comunidad de English Teachers in Perú. Así que, por favor, un momentito más, querido Juan, compartimos porque ya están pidiéndonos el link. Vamos a compartir el link ahora. Para eso está con nosotros nuestra queridísima Mayrita Rengifo, mi querida Mayrita Ríos Rengifo, nuestra super administradora ETiP.
Yes, Miss. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Now I'm going to give you the exit ticket. Please pay attention. It will be available only for 15 minutes. Okay. Lo voy a decir en español para que lo entiendan, ¿sí, Miss? https://cutt.ly/E mayúscula, T mayúscula, I minúscula, P mayúscula, 2, N minúscula, D minúscula, S mayúscula, U mayúscula, M mayúscula, M mayúscula y E mayúscula y R mayúscula. ¿Ok? Una vez más, https://cutt en minúscula, punto, L, Y, minúscula, /E, T, mayúscula, I minúscula, P mayúscula, 2, N, D en minúscula, S, U, M, M, E, R en mayúscula. Ok, Miss.
Muchísimas gracias, querida Mayrita. Por favor, para todos los teachers, recuerden lo siguiente, ¿sí? Recuerden que deben de, si es que no han podido ingresar porque el link ahorita estoy revisando, está ya fijado en el chat de YouTube. Pero si tienen algún problema para ingresar desde ahí, entonces pueden digitarlo en su navegador. Pero recuerden, tomen una capturita de la pantalla. Recuerden que las mayúsculas y minúsculas tienen que estar exactamente igual o si no, no los va a enviar al formulario, tal como ya lo ha mencionado Mayrita. Ya las mayúsculas y minúsculas tal cual. Por favor. No se desconecten, tienen que seguir ahí porque ahora ya está pasando el tiempo y mientras tanto vamos a regresar con ustedes, vamos a conversar un poquito con Juan y luego todos los que han llenado este formulario vamos a entrar al sorteo. Y si ustedes no están para decir presente en el chat en vivo, se perdieron la beca. Así que espero que no se pierdan esta oportunidad. Ahora sí, querido Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki, una vez más el aplauso para tu presentación el día de hoy. Miles de gracias realmente. Me gustaría que pudieras compartir un poquito sobre el trabajo, la propuesta de formación que tiene International House Lima aquí en Perú.
Claro que sí. Bueno, International House, como mencioné al principio, es la asociación de centros de idiomas más grande del mundo. Tenemos presencia en Australia, Inglaterra, México, Canadá, Italia, España, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Estamos en casi todo el mundo, estamos en más de 60 países, tenemos más de 120 locales. E International House tiene como expertise principal a nivel mundial la preparación docente. Para que sepan, los que tal vez no conocen o sí conocen el Celta y el Delta son certificados, diplomados de Cambridge de enseñanza de inglés. Son los diplomados más importantes a nivel mundial. Para Inglaterra, el Delta, por ejemplo, tiene categoría 7, 7 de 8. Significa que tiene el mismo peso en Inglaterra que una maestría. La diferencia entre el Celta y el Delta, con un bachiller o una maestría, es que son diplomados prácticos, donde uno enseña y recibe retroalimentación de cómo está enseñando uno, etcétera, etcétera. No vas a hablar tanto de, no sé, de Ausubel y de Vygotsky y de cosas por el estilo. Sí hay un poquito de eso en el Delta, pero no hay tanto como en un bachiller o una maestría, sino más bien del lado práctico. Para que hay información adicional, el Celta fue creado por International House y vendido a Cambridge. O sea, nosotros somos realmente expertos en lo que es preparación docente. Y en Perú y en el mundo, nosotros dictamos diplomados de Celta, Delta, Train the Trainer, tenemos diplomados de preparación para TKT, tenemos diplomados para enseñanza de niños, tenemos el CAM, que es el Certificate of Advanced Methodology, que es más o menos es un nivel entre el Celta y el Delta más o menos. Em, Tenemos una gran cantidad de opciones. Incluso International House en Cuernavaca, en México, tiene una universidad donde tiene un bachiller de enseñanza de inglés y una maestría de enseñanza de inglés y dirección educativa. Em, entonces, somos expertos en preparación docente y de ahí vienen las becas bueno, una de las becas que estamos dando, que es el 10% en la beca del Celta. Em, Aparte de eso, en el Perú y en las Américas en general, nos dedicamos mucho a la certificación de estudiantes con los exámenes internacionales. Como pueden ver acá en mi pantalla, tengo el logo de Cambridge acá abajo, tengo el logo de IELTS acá, que es el certificado que te piden para estudiar en Inglaterra, Australia, para emigrar. Y nosotros nos dedicamos a visitar colegios, centros de idiomas, universidades, etcétera, para promover que tomen estos exámenes con nosotros. Colegio que toma exámenes con nosotros tiene becas en su CELTA, su DELTA, etcétera, tienen becas entre 15 y 25%. Así que, y normalmente son las únicas becas que ofrecemos. En este caso en particular, les estamos ofreciendo una beca de 10% a una persona, eh, aún sin que el colegio trabaje con nosotros, solamente por estar acá con nosotros en este webinar. Si a alguien le interesara tener una beca más grande, bueno, ahí pueden contactar a Angelita, que es una de nuestras asesoras también, y podemos ver si el colegio desea trabajar con nosotros, y ahí pueden ganarse su beca de 15 o 25%. Muy importante, el Celta es 100% en línea. Y a diferencia del Celta que pueden tomar con cualquier otro centro, nosotros tenemos un módulo que hemos agregado de inteligencia artificial. Y lo que me refiero de inteligencia artificial, solo para que quede claro, no es que les vamos a enseñar nosotros con inteligencia artificial, sino que les vamos a enseñar cómo usar inteligencia artificial para enseñar en sus clases.
Excelente, Juan, qué interesante. En realidad sabemos muchos que International House tiene presencia tal cual dice el nombre a nivel internacional, es muy reconocido en todo lo que respecta el área de inglés para nosotros los maestros. Es una oportunidad más para poder capacitarnos. Creo que hay una propuesta muy interesante. Entonces tenemos el día de hoy, como nos has comentado un poquito, el 10% de descuento para el curso de Celta Certificate, que es un certificado internacional para profesores de inglés que incluso no es solicitado o requerido en el caso que algún docente de inglés quiere enseñar no solamente aquí, sino en el extranjero, ¿no? Tiene esa validez internacional súper importante que se da a nivel internacional fuera del país y es reconocido alrededor del mundo. Una pregunta, querido Juan, sobre esta beca que también el día de hoy, si nos puedes comentar un poquitito más sobre esta beca Exam Trainer, que es el curso de estrategias para exámenes aquí para el KET, ajá, para el PET y para el FIRST. Si nos comentas un poquito en qué consiste el curso de Exam Trainer y en qué
Perfecto.
consiste también un poquito al final ya la beca que de repente puedan ganar algunos de los teachers suertudos que están conectados el día de hoy.
Perfecto. Acá quiero mencionar eh, que esta beca, ahí no dice al costado, pero vamos a ver si puedo hacer, ¿dónde está para yo hacer marcas acá? Esa beca del Exam Trainer es una beca, es 5 becas, bueno, del 100%. O sea,
Mm.
quienes ganen esas 5 becas pueden acceder al curso Exam Trainer de manera completamente gratuita. El curso Exam Trainer es un curso donde los docentes aprenden a preparar estudiantes para exámenes internacionales, porque no es lo mismo enseñar que preparar para exámenes internacionales. Son dos cosas diferentes. Entonces vamos a enseñarles a preparar a sus estudiantes para, ojo, exámenes internacionales, acá hablamos de los exámenes de Cambridge, que están los YLE, el Key, Preliminary, First. E incluso van a encontrar material para Advanced Proficiency dentro del curso. El curso es un curso de clase invertida. Estoy seguro que la mayoría acá saben qué significa eso, pero por si acaso, clase invertida significa que hay una plataforma de autoestudio y de ahí cada 2 semanas tenemos sesiones de Zoom donde se confirma lo aprendido. Entonces, qué tan bueno y qué tan útil es este curso depende de ustedes. Porque si yo realmente exploto todo lo que hay en la plataforma, van a tener toda la información necesaria. Si solo me conecto a las sesiones de Zoom, voy a tener mi certificado al final, pero no voy a haber aprendido casi nada. Entonces ustedes que vayan a ganar esta beca necesitan sacarle todo el jugo. Y sí, ahí Raúl justo menciona Flip Learning, exactamente, Flip Learning o Flip Classroom, o hay varias
Por
maneras que le
ahí
llaman.
nos pregunta, querido Juan Xiomara Hidalgo, en el caso de las 5 becas que son del 100% teachers, ojo, para este curso, para el Exam Trainer, para poder preparar a nuestros estudiantes, para dar un KET, un PET, un FIRST, es exclusivamente para docentes, así que va a estar súper genial. La pregunta va, más allá de ello, como propuesta de International House, ¿cuál es el costo aproximado de este curso si lo quisieran llevar?
Este curso tiene un valor, creo que era el valor, no me acuerdo cuánto valía, como 200 soles cada curso o algo así, pero nosotros no lo vendemos. Este curso solamente se ofrece de manera gratuita a todos los profesores de inglés de todos los colegios que trabajan con nosotros.
Ah, es
Entonces,
algo gratuito que viene incluido con todo el pack de formación que tienen con los colegios que tienen convenio con International House.
sí, acá básicamente nosotros vemos el proyecto de exámenes internacionales no como un producto que le vendemos al colegio, y no te estoy vendiendo un Key, un Preliminary, un First, sino te estoy dando un servicio integral. Te estoy dando un servicio que incluye las becas parciales para Celta, Delta, Train the Trainer, etcétera. Te estoy dando estas becas completas para el Exam Trainer. Damos de manera gratuita las charlas de padres de familia, las visitas de nuestros asesores. Si ustedes tienen la suerte de estar en Arequipa, Cusco o Tacna, quien les va a visitar es la bella Angelita, que aparte de ser linda y dulce, es una capa académicamente. Entonces, ella es quien les va a visitar. Si se encuentran en Lima, tenemos 3 asesores, aparte de yo, que soy el director, que también voy a visitar a los colegios. Eh, entonces, la idea es darles todo el soporte. Porque si yo les vendo, no sé, 700 soles, 800 soles el FCI para el alumno, y voy y tomo el FCI y no les doy ningún apoyo, no los estamos ayudando a crecer. El objetivo es ayudar
Claro.
a crecer a los colegios.
Excelente, me parece una propuesta súper completa. Y qué más ahora mencionar que nuestra querida administradora Ángela Salazar, que también es parte de International House, ahora la pregunta va para ella, porque está muy calladita el día de hoy. Querida Angelita, justo ahorita Juan acaba de mencionar y hay una pregunta que quisiera que tú nos respondas. ¿De qué manera tendrían que hacer? Hay muchos teachers que están escribiendo en este momento y están interesados. ¿Cómo podría yo hacer para hacer que mi colegio trabaje con ustedes? ¿Cuáles son los pasos o el protocolo que tiene International House para esto?
En realidad, para que trabajen con nosotros, sus alumnos deben tomar exámenes internacionales. Deben ustedes prepararlos para tomar exámenes internacionales. Y nada más, en realidad.
Y el otro paso es llamarnos. Llamarnos,
Exactamente.
llamarnos o escribirnos. Hace un rato en el cierre de mi presentación,
Ujú.
puse mi correo y puse mi número. En un ratito seguramente Angelita va a compartir el suyo. Y quiero mostrarles una fotito. Quiero mostrarles una fotito un ratito. Disculpen que esto no era parte de mi plan, así que no la tengo preparada. 5
No te
segunditos.
preocupes, querido Juan. Acá cuando las
Porque
cosas no son
están
planeadas.
preguntando si vamos a Junín, si vamos a Tarapoto, si
Vamos
vamos
a
aquí,
todos
si vamos
lados.
allá. Vamos a todos lados.
Vamos a todos
Obviamente
lados.
va a depender de la cantidad de alumnos que haya para una sesión y qué tan lejos sea el lugar para ver a dónde llegamos y a dónde nos cuesta un poquito más, pero no hay ningún lado al que no lleguemos. Tanto así que les cuento, el año pasado nosotros ganamos una licitación, ya vamos 2 años seguidos ganando la licitación, donde hemos tomado exámenes en todos los COAR del país. Hace 2 años tomamos en todos los COAR del país, el año pasado todos los COAR excepto el de Lima. Acá voy a hacer una pequeña corrección. Todos los COAR académicos, no los deportivos no tomaron examen, pero todos los COAR académicos del país tomamos nosotros exámenes. Y déjenme compartirles una pequeña fotito. Voy a compartir mi pantalla un ratito. Este es el COAR de Amazonas. Y en el COAR de Amazonas, en particular, me tocó ir a mí el año pasado. Y realmente, el COAR de Amazonas ni siquiera está en una ciudad grande en Amazonas, está en una ciudad pequeña, está en Lamut, en Amazonas. Y si nosotros podemos llegar al Coar de Amazonas y tomar examen digital para colmo, ni siquiera examen en papel, si podemos llegar hasta el Coar de Amazonas y tomar examen digital, podemos llegar a cualquier colegio donde ustedes estén. Y si me van a decir, no estoy seguro que ese sea el Coar de Amazonas, dudo de lo que me estás diciendo, déjenme mostrarles esta foto, donde efectivamente está ahí en el Coar de Amazonas. Así que
Excelente, Juan, excelente, realmente. Quédate con esa foto, si puedes la amplías, ahí está Juan, se ve en el medio.
ahí estoy, sí, estoy con mi pose de metalero ese día.
Y está con todos los estudiantes. Qué bonito, qué bonito. Esta es una prueba porque si bien los COAR tienen un modelo exclusivo, digamos, dentro de su propuesta educativa desde el Ministerio de Educación, creo que nada nos frena cuando tenemos ese interés y se puede hacer la gestión de repente de manera particular en nuestras propias instituciones educativas. Yo entiendo que porque quisiera que los teachers tengan bien clara la información para que vean qué es lo que debe de partir desde el colegio, para que estén listos y puedan hacer el convenio con ustedes en el caso que así lo decidan, porque a mí me parece súper interesante que además de darles el servicio de que pues los estudiantes puedan dar un examen internacional, dependiendo del nivel que tengan A1, A2, B1, etcétera, porque acá no se trata de que solamente lo van a dar si tienen cierto nivel. Empiezan desde cualquiera de los niveles para empezar, queridos maestros. Y lo siguiente, bueno, que les mencionaba que no es solamente el servicio, yo lo resumo así, no es solamente el servicio que da International House del poder dar estos exámenes internacionales, sino que también capacita a los docentes para que puedan preparar a sus estudiantes y estén listos para dar estos exámenes. O sea, aquí todos ganamos, estudiantes y docentes. Ojo que yo no trabajo en International House, estoy resumiendo la información porque yo necesito que la tengan súper claro porque yo veo que hay muchos interesados y a mí particularmente me parece una muy buena propuesta. Para esto tendrían que tener, entiendo yo, Juan, aquí quítame la duda, o Angelita, ambos que seguramente ya han visitado instituciones. Entonces aquí el colegio tendría que tener como que una propuesta curricular alineada al MSER definitivamente, ¿no? Para que
Sí,
dentro de esa propuesta curricular, puedan ir formándolos para que pasando tal grado o tal grado pueda optar para poder dar un examen internacional, que ya puede ser mismo A1, A2, KET o hasta PET, como fuera, ¿verdad? Quisiera que
correcto.
me resuman eso.
Sí, básicamente, o sea, mira, cualquier colegio que tenga profesores de inglés ya tiene suficiente, lo toma suficientemente en serio para tomar los exámenes. Eh, También trabajamos con los exámenes de Michigan, que son multinivel en secundaria. Así que si por ahí les da miedo un FCE, algo por el estilo, tenemos el MIT Go, tenemos el MIT. O sea, realmente tenemos todas las opciones posibles. Incluso hay una Miss que ha preguntado un par de veces por ahí en el chat, los nidos. Tenemos un examen de inicial también, que por si acaso, corrección, no es un examen, es una observación evaluativa donde los chicos con una tablet o con una computadora básicamente juegan y les damos ahí retroalimentación y un certificado. Entonces, no hay nada ni nadie con quien no podamos perdón, trabajar. También vi en el chat que alguien me preguntó si llegábamos a México, si llegamos a Argentina. Nosotros no llegamos a México, pero International House México tiene exactamente la misma propuesta que nosotros. International House México y International House Lima están aliados y tenemos exactamente la misma propuesta también en Colombia. Si hay alguien de acá de Colombia, IH Bogotá, IH Cali, IH Medellín trabajan con nosotros también. Así que donde quieran que lleguemos, ahí llegamos.
Y
Y
además,
seguramente pueden
ay,
encontrar la
perdóname.
información en la web, ¿no, Angelita? Deben de tener sus
Sí.
páginas web
Sí,
ahí.
sí. Además, no es, nosotros tenemos también colegios del estado que tienen la intención de tomar exámenes y es solamente que se reúnan con sus padres de familia, así como lo hacen ustedes para plantear cualquier proyecto, lo hacen tal cual y con aprobación de ellos, del profesor, pues nosotros estamos ahí. No necesitan nada más.
Y acabo de ver
Perfecto.
una pregunta de bueno, Bolivia, también vamos a Bolivia, no hay problema. Y María Sabogal menciona que nosotros ya trabajamos con ellos, muy feliz. Y
Ajá.
me pregunta por ahí Lidia si tenemos libros, y efectivamente también vendemos libros. No vamos a adentrarnos mucho de eso en este momento, pero también vendemos libros, vendemos paquetes de examen con libro para que los estudiantes puedan, al comprar su libro, ir accediendo a los exámenes. Todo lo que quieren hacer, lo podemos hacer.
Entonces, ya saben, esta es una propuesta súper interesante. Ya Angelita nos va a comentar más después a todo el equipo de administradores. También, Juan, te vamos a volver a contactar. Yo espero que tengas la disposición porque seguramente los maestros nos van a hacer consultas y por ahí hay que apoyarlos en algo. Muchísimas gracias. Creo que ya, si me dice José, si ya está listo, por favor, la data del formulario para proceder al sorteo, no sin antes aclararles lo siguiente, porque también están escribiendo bastante sobre el exit ticket. Si es que ya se cerró, era justamente porque necesitábamos la data para este sorteo. Son 5 becas súper completas que generosamente Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki y Angelita Salazar a través de International House Lima están compartiendo con nosotros. Y es una beca con el 10% de descuento para un Celta Course que también se está compartiendo con nosotros. Entonces vamos a tener en el sorteo 6 ganadores. No va a haber nada al agua de frente. Vamos con los 6. Vamos con las becas completas. Vamos a ir ahí rotando entre uno y otro. Y vamos a volver a abrir el exit ticket para quienes, por el apuro, tal vez hemos recortado un poquito el tiempo, no han podido registrar la asistencia, ¿ya? Pero para eso tienen que estar súper atentos. En cualquier momento lo habilitamos para que nos acompañen toditos. Así que así es nuestra estrategia para retener los teachers. Vamos a compartirlo, no se preocupen, lo vamos a habilitar al menos 5 minutitos más. No se desconecten, nosotros les avisamos aquí en el vivo. Ojo, pasamos al sorteo. Si es que ya está listo, a ver, voy a dejar de compartir. Ya está. Si es que ya está listo, lo vemos en pantalla la lista de cuántos maestros que han llenado el exit ticket. Vamos, son 486. Con razón, han habido más de 500 y seguramente han quedado por ahí. Lo lamento mucho, no se preocupen, vamos a volver a abrir el exit ticket. Pero estos 486 maestros que llegaron a completar el formulario entran para el sorteo. A la voz de Juan. Juan, a la voz de 3, vas con Go y ahí vamos nosotros a ver quién es el ganador de la primera beca completa del training course.
Perfecto. Entonces, 1, 2, 3, go.
Angelita, ¿quién es la ganadora?
Y nuestra ganadora es, o ganador, ¿sí? Cruz Calla Analia.
Analia Cruz Calla tiene que escribir presente en el chat. Y le vamos a dar solamente así la maldad de las maldades el día de hoy. 10 segunditos. Le vamos a dar solo 10 segunditos porque si están, teacher. Si no, vamos al agua y pasamos con el siguiente. A ver, veamos los demás. Ayúdenme a
Está
leer
en el chat, está en el chat, ya
Sí,
lo vi.
Analia Cruz presente. Un aplauso, maestra, para usted. Nos vamos a compartir para hacerle llegar la beca a través de International House. Felicitaciones entonces. Ahora sí, Juan, vamos a ver si le das la suerte ahora a un teacher varón porque siempre andan diciendo que los discriminamos. A la voz de 3.
Perfecto. 1, 2, 3, go.
Y el ganadora es David, Mayrita, ¿quién está por ahí para que nos ayuden?
Sí, Miss.
Mayrita.
Sí, Miss, yo le digo, la ganadora es Sofía Jacqueline Tumbajulca Cruzado. Sofía Jacqueline Tumbajulca Cruzado, Miss.
Gracias, Miss Mayrita. Ahora revisamos a la suertuda. Si es que está ahí, por favor. Si es que está en el chat, debe de escribir presente. Sí, si es que está en el chat.
Presente, ya puso.
¿Ve?
Ya está.
Uy, están todos súper atentos. La segunda beca. Y ahora sí, Miss Jessica está por ahí, nos va a ayudar también. Juan, querido Juan, vamos a la voz de 3 con la siguiente.
Perfecto. A ver si ahora sí sale alguno de los profesores.
Sí, pues.
1, 2, 3, go.
Y querida Jessica, ¿quién es la ganadora o ganador?
Y la ganadora es Miss Aide María Bendezú Padilla.
Otra vez tan cerquita que estaba de mi querida amiga Nuri Guataúno, querida Nuri, casi seguro estaba por ahí. María Bendezú tiene que decir presente en el chat, o si no, no vamos a poder darle la beca. Ayúdeme por favor leyendo en el chat si es que está por ahí de María Bendezú Padilla. Vamos a dar 10 segunditos a la maestra Aide María Bendezú Padilla. Ahí están gritando, Juan. Rita Kuzma dice, yo quiero mi beca. Me cerraron el formulario. Me tocó Juan, no, mi Rita, disculpe. A ver, no está, no. María Bendezú Padilla, querida
Parece que
María
no
Bendezú
está.
Padilla, no está. Entonces...
Al agua.
Al agua.
Es que hace mucho calor.
Y ese es
¿Dónde
el
está?
lamento. Y ahora sí, vamos entonces por la tercera beca una vez más, querido Juan.
1, 2, 3, go.
Y ganador, ganadora, ¿quién es? Angelita.
La ganadora es Becerra Díaz Karim Silvana.
Karin Silvana
Karim
Becerra
Silvana.
Díaz, querida Karin, ya sabes que tienes
¿Estará
que
por ahí?
colocar presente en el chat para poder llevarte esta beca al 100%, beca completita para el curso. A ver, Karin, ayúdeme a ver si está por ahí. Karin Silvana
Karim
Becerra
puso
Karim
Díaz.
Díaz.
presente. Ya puso
Presente
Veo
en
Karim
presente.
Díaz.
mayúsculas, porque aquí estoy
Sí, ya,
ciega, sí, ya la
ya
vi.
puso.
Sí está,
Karim
sí
Díaz
está.
puso presente.
Yo soy la mala. Listo, bravo, se fue la tercera beca. Vamos ahora, Juan, ¿qué dices? ¿Continuamos con las becas? Nos vamos con la del 10% del Celta.
Yo creo que continuamos, nos faltan 2 nomás, a ver
Vamos
si sale
entonces
algún
con la
chico.
cuarta beca completa para el exam course. Yo me ando confundiendo. Vamos, por favor, Juan. Para
1,
el
2, 3, go.
Y la ganadora es, Angelita, ¿quién es la ganadora?
La ganadora es Doris Elizabeth Quispe Ochoa.
Miss Doris Elizabeth
Tus-
Quispe Ochoa. Ya se están quejando los varones, ¿ve? Dice que debemos de separar la data, dice.
Creo que vas a tener que hacerlo en algún momento porque
Sí,
no sale.
creo que para la próxima. La vez pasada
Sí,
salieron
¿no?
dos y no estaban.
Mm,
Vamos a ver si está presente por ahí. Doris Elizabeth Quispe Ochoa.
No, no.
Mientras tanto,
Eh,
repetimos, porque hay un par de personas que están preguntando, tal vez no prestaron atención hace un ratito. Es una beca para un curso donde van a aprender a preparar estudiantes para exámenes internacionales.
ujú. Desde los niveles A1,
Desde
A2.
pre a 1 con el Starters.
Ay,
Desde pre a 1.
excelente, que nuestros peques, la mayoría te diré en el sistema público, querido Juan, en secundaria, como no llevan inglés en primaria, entonces empiezan desde el pre-A1 generalmente.
Está bien, está bien.
Y, a ver, está Doris Elizabeth Quispe.
Alguien puso
Pero
presente, pero dice Solange, así que no creo que sea.
no, entonces ya no, no es.
No, no está.
Vamos entonces con vamos, Juan.
1, 2, 3, go. Eliberto. Uy, yo me adelanté.
Sí.
Está
Ya
bien,
lo
Juan,
dijiste,
tú tienes
dilo.
que decirlo, es varón.
Eliberto Martínez, que no solamente es varón, sino que estuvo participando en toda la presentación.
Sí, y
Así
además yo
que
lo conozco, me parece que Heriberto es de Venezuela, sí, pero no es peruano. Heriberto, por favor, dime que estás ahí,
alguien
Por
dice
porque
que
favor,
ya se
sigue
fue,
mucho
pero
la comunidad, sigue mucho la comunidad y sí ha estado participando y escribiendo un montón.
me acuerdo porque vi
Y
su
qué
nombre varias
lindo.
veces y tenía que prestar atención para pronunciarlo correctamente.
Venezuela, Colombia, México, Ecuador, no recuerdo bien, pero a ver, Heriberto está por ahí. ¿Alguien que le pase la voz? Nada, parece que no.
Oh.
No, Miss Elsa Mendoza, ahorita acaba de ganar, me dice, parece que los de países diferentes a Perú no ganan nunca. Justo el
está.
maestro que ahorita es International Teacher, no es de Perú, no es de Perú, pero estamos esperando que diga presente. Si no dice presente, entonces ni
Y
modo.
estuvo.
Mm,
Ay, por favor, vamos a
no
darle.
está, parece.
Parece que no está. Qué
Mm.
bonita. Bueno, ¿han visto, teachers? Ya se fue ya. Vamos, Juan.
Y con eso ya ganó alguien de otro país y varón. Bueno,
Ajá.
siguiente. 1, 2, 3, go.
Y aquí, Jessie, ¿estás por ahí? ¿Quién es la ganadora?
La nueva ganadora es la Miss Betty Bazán.
Betty
Bazán.
Bazán. Betty Bazán, ¿está por ahí? Betty Bazán, por favor en el chat, tiene que escribir. Miss Elsa Mendoza de Venezuela, aleluya. Dice sí, pero no estuvo, pues el maestro, qué penita. Ahora le tocó a Betty Bazán y si es que está atenta, entonces se queda con la beca. Betty Bazán, ¿está por ahí? No se preocupe, Miss María Bendezú, que ya su beca está asegurada. La he leído decir presente toda la noche desde que ha salido.
Lo
Ya
que
está.
pasa es que salió en el otro lado, o sea, la pusimos al otro lado. Por
Ah,
eso es.
ya. No, pero ya está. Ah, está en el descanso.
Está en el descanso porque anotó un
Ah, yo lo
poquito.
lamento, Miss. Sí, está en el descanso. Es que no. Ahorita los ganadores son Analia Cruz Calla, Sofía Jacqueline Tumbajulca, que sí dijeron presente, y está por ahí Karin Silvana Becerra, no está Karin, porque si no pasamos,
No está.
Pasamos porque no está.
démelo a mí, dices. Vamos,
Sí.
Juan.
Siguiente. 1, 2, 3, go.
A ver, Angelita.
El premio va para Stephanie Shirley Sicha Altazábal.
Stephanie, ¿está por ahí?
Visita, contéstenos.
Ticha Aldazábal, Stephanie Shirley. Miss Ketty Rosa, vamos a activarlo, pero un momento más, por favor. Estamos todavía en el sorteo. Ya he dicho que en cualquier momento lo activamos.
Acabo
Ahí está.
de ver.
¡Oh! ¿Es de Perú, Miss Stephanie? Confírmanos si es de Perú, tengo la curiosidad.
Ya deberían ponernos de dónde son.
Sí, deberían ponernos de dónde son para saber exactamente en qué lugar
¿A
se
dónde se va?
encuentran, ¿no? Si a dónde se está yendo la beca. Yulisita quiere una, dice. Nuestros administradores también quieren, pero, uy, lo lamento. Vamos ahí entonces. Ya se fue la tercera, pero Silvana Díaz, Karim Becerra, creo que no, ¿no es cierto? Esta sería recién la tercera, ¿o no?
No, esa fue la cuarta.
Ah, esta es la cuarta, ya. Entonces nos queda una.
A ver.
Nos queda una.
1,
Vamos.
2, 3, go.
Listo. Juan, ¿quién es la ganadora?
La ganadora es Lida Benita Huamani Castro.
Lida Benita Guamaní Castro, querida Lida, y si es seguidora fiel de la comunidad de English Teachers in Perú. Stephanie dice que es de Lima, pero enseña en Ayacucho. Qué genial, se fue a Ayacucho la beca. Excelente. No, Miss María Bendezú Padilla hace ratote que la llamamos Miss. Cuando la llamamos no estuvo. Usted escribió mucho después, lo lamento mucho. Vamos entonces con Lida Benita Guamaní Castro, si es que está por ahí. Estimada Lida Benita. Entendemos que a veces solamente demora unos segunditos, 10 segundos, probablemente 15 lag entre YouTube y el Zoom, es que es desde donde estamos conectados, pero no más. Miss Jacqueline Tumbajulca, que
Es de
también ganó,
Trujillo.
es de Trujillo, pero enseña en Jaén. Otras de las becas se ha ido a Jaén. Qué excelente.
Creo que Lida Huamani no está. Parece que no está.
No está, así que no.
A ver, una más.
Ya.
Yo creo que esta sale, esta sale.
A ver,
1,
vamos.
2, 3, go.
Y la ganadora es Angelita.
La ganadora es Edith Rosario Vilches Chanca.
Miss Edith Rosario Vilches Chanca está por ahí. Tiene que decir presente, por favor, y nos dice desde dónde se conecta para saber dónde se ha ido la beca.
Edith, ¿por dónde está?
Sí, por favor. Edith Rosario Vilches, Miss María Bendezú Padilla, le vamos a enviar un ETiP Pack, ya, un ETiP Pack con recursos
Edith
en la
Vilches,
comunidad, ¿ya? Edith,
presente.
hoy,
Yeah.
genial. Ya tenemos ganador, entonces, querida Edith, ¿desde dónde? ¿Desde dónde nos escribes? Edith Rosario Vilches Chanca. La beca al 100% completísima para los 5 docentes y ahora nos vamos con el Celta, querido Juan.
Perfecto. Entonces les comento un poco otra vez de qué es el CELTA para que tengan toda la información. El CELTA es un diplomado de la Universidad de Cambridge. Es uno de los diplomados más importantes de enseñanza de inglés a nivel mundial. Si ustedes ven CVs de personas en LinkedIn y cosas por el estilo, ponen ahí CELTA Certified Teacher. Es realmente una cosa impresionante que fue creada originalmente por International House. Hoy en día lo certifica Cambridge. Nosotros lo dictamos y se dicta 100% online. ¿No? Para que sepan un poquito, voy a compartir mi pantalla 5 segunditos.
Sí, claro que sí. Ya, perfecto.
Esto es el CELTA, tiene 3 módulos: Introduction to the CELTA Course, Introduction to Language Teaching and Learning y Language Awareness. Es un diplomado que nosotros recomendamos desde pre-service hasta aproximadamente entre 5 y 10 años de experiencia. Después de 5 o 10 años de experiencia, solemos recomendar el Delta, que es el siguiente. El Celta, ustedes pueden comparar sus precios a nivel mundial, cuesta normalmente $1.890. Es un diplomado bastante costoso y por eso es que el 10% de descuento significa que les estamos dando un vale de $189. Y en el caso de ustedes en particular, espérate, acá tengo un tema que normalmente cuesta 1.890. En Perú tenemos un 200 USD Early Bird Discount, o sea, si te inscribes un mes antes, ya de por sí te da un descuento de $200. Y encima de eso es el descuento que les vamos a dar nosotros. Así que va a ser un descuento de 10% aparte de estos $200. Muy importante para mencionar, para los que trabajan en colegios que ya trabajan con nosotros, eh, no es acumulable con el descuento que les damos de 25%, así que no es que se convierta en un descuento de 35%. ¿Ok? Eso es importante mencionar. Y creo que con eso ya podemos pasar.
Sí, yo pienso que sí. Por favor, Mr. Ortega puede compartir la pantalla. Vamos entonces para el Celta. O quienes de repente aquí, porque seguramente van a salir docentes y acá creo que es importante, Juan, no sé si están de acuerdo conmigo, en que sea el maestro quien esté interesado realmente en tomarlo, ¿no? En tomarlo y aprovechar ese 10% de descuento, porque lo que sí no quisiéramos es que alguien lo gane y después el 10% de descuento quede al aire.
Yo creo
No
que lo
sé
que
si...
podríamos hacer algo un poco más fácil,
Ujú.
que pueda ser transferible. O sea, la
Ok.
persona que lo gana le pueda escribir a Angelita, que Angelita es quien va a estar manejando esto, y le diga, yo soy tal, tal, lo gané yo y se lo estoy transfiriendo a X, Y o Z. Entonces puede
Ya,
ser transferible, porque si no, entre los que no están y etcétera, podemos demorarnos un buen rato. O puede ser que la persona hoy día diga que sí y mañana, pasado mañana, después de conversar con su esposo o con su esposa, le digan, no vas a gastar esa cantidad de dinero y se arrepienta. Por cierto, hoy es 8 de febrero, tiene un año de validez para la inscripción, porque
ya
de
está
ahí no
perfecto.
nos vamos a acordar después de un año de exactamente quién era.
Les vamos a enviar de todas maneras todos los datos de los ganadores para que se puedan activar sus becas, así que no se preocupen. Todos los que están aquí a la derecha, dice ahí ganadores, ustedes lo pueden ver. Vamos a enviar los datos a Juan Gonzalo para que se puedan comunicar desde International House para que se les pueda hacer la entrega de la beca, ¿sí? Ahora sí, vamos entonces, es transferible, queda eso bien clarito, ¿sí?
Transferible y un año de validez.
Y yo te puedo pedir algo, Juan, no, creo que no.
Sí.
Es que me da una penita con la profesora María Bendezú Padilla, ¿Tú crees que pueda suplicarte una beca para la maestra que se le ha pasado diciendo presente y por favor, por favor, por favor, por favor en toda la sesión?
Mire, yo sé que en algunas partes del país, nosotros hemos tomado exámenes en Iquitos, en otros lugares, donde a veces el lag, la demora de tiempo es bastante amplia. Hemos visto la respuesta de ella un par de minutos después, pero puede ser que hayas tenido se le fue el internet, haya pasado lo que haya pasado. Sí podemos ponerle una sexta beca del exam trainer para
¡Uy,
la Miss.
gracias! Muchas gracias. Un súper aplauso para ti, querido Juan, para International House Lima. Angelita, gracias. Querida maestra, vamos a entender. Gracias por la empatía también. Muchísimas gracias, que a veces el tema de conectividad nos traiciona. Acá estamos todos los administradores de ETiP sumamente agradecidos contigo, Juan, por este gesto. Y querida maestra, que ya está por ahí, María Bendezú Padilla, ya está, no se leyó en el momento, eso sí es cierto, no sé si es tema de su internet, se leyeron minutos después, por eso se le mandó el agua, pero por este gesto de empatía que está teniendo nuestro estimado speaker del día de hoy, Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki, y a través de International House Lima le vamos a considerar para que también esté dentro de la lista de ganadores, ¿sí? Bien, maestra,
Por
espero
cierto,
que...
cabe
por favor.
mencionar, nosotros tenemos 2 o 3 de estos cursos que empiezan cada mes. A Angelita les va a pasar los próximos comienzos. Nuevamente tienen todo el año para elegir cuáles que van a elegir. eh, pero sí, pueden elegir el que más les conviene según fechas. El curso dura como 8 semanas, así que ya, bueno, ustedes eligen qué fechas les conviene más.
Ok, ok, muchísimas gracias. Eso más, vea, van a poder elegir las fechas de inicio, así que muchísimas gracias. Ahora sí, nos vamos con esta beca con el 10% de descuento que puede ser transferible, ¿no? Haciendo ahí la precisión. Bien, querido Juan, a tu voz.
1, 2, 3, go. Y la ganadora del premio principal, Lady Carolina Ramos Marapara.
Lady Carolina Ramos Marapara, si está por ahí.
Por cierto, hay algunas personas que están preguntando mi número. Cuando
Sí.
terminemos con esto, voy a volver a compartir la parte donde tengo mi número y mi correo.
Querido Juan, no te preocupes. Lo que nosotros hacemos también es que les enviamos parte del material del día de hoy y toda la información que ustedes tienen a su correo electrónico. Entonces,
Ok,
todos han registrado en el Exit Ticket. Igual, si tú quieres volverlo a mostrar en pantalla, no hay ningún problema, pero se los vamos a enviar ahí, toda la información que has mostrado al final.
perfecto.
Y si quieres alguna
El,
información
el,
adicional, flyers o algo necesario, lo adjuntamos al correo
no,
también.
yo les puedo pasar el PowerPoint. Lo que sí, como se habrán dado cuenta, yo hablo mucho más de lo que escribo, entonces el PowerPoint no se entiende tan bien sin la presentación, pero bueno, ahí está.
Pero ahí con los audios puede ayudar, yo pienso que sí.
Sí. No
De
he
todas
visto, mientras hemos estado conversando, que haya puesto presente Lady
Sí, a ver,
Ramos.
Lady Carolina Ramos,
No
Marapara.
la veo.
No la veo yo tampoco.
Ahora sí vamos a tener que correr.
Sí, ya estamos.
No,
A ver.
no está.
No, no está. Pasamos rapidito entonces, por favor.
Y salió Magdalena Alburqueque.
Magdalena Alburqueque, si está por ahí. Por favor, sí, enviamos a toditos, están por ahí comentando. Ojo, se envían los materiales a todos los que llenan el formulario de registro, el exit ticket de la semana pasada. Pero siempre les pedimos, por favor, que tengan el cuidado cuando digiten su correo electrónico, un puntito más, un puntito menos, vocal, etcétera, o algo que omitan y ya no les llega. Por otro lado, también revisen siempre el spam. Como les mandamos adjunto material, muchas veces su correo electrónico lo detecta como spam, entonces revisen por favor que esté ahí. Nosotros se los mandamos desde nuestro correo que es English Teachers in Perú de Gmail. Lo revisan por favor, ¿ya? Pero si ustedes llenaron el exit ticket no hay forma, se envía a todo aquel que llena exit ticket. A ver, vamos por ahí.
A ver,
Magdalena Buquerque.
No está, parece.
No está, no. Vamos a dar el link, Miss Manzanedo, no se preocupe, quienes están pidiendo, por favor, ya estamos por terminar. Elisa Olvera quiere la beca, dice yo. Vamos a ver.
No es.
Y una vez más.
A ver, tenemos a Liz Fiorella Ramírez Lazo.
Liz Fiorella Ramírez Lazo. No hay forma, estimado, que él no sé qué más dice con respecto al material. Revisa, por favor, el spam de su correo electrónico y si no, también se puede comunicar con el correo electrónico englishteachersinperu@gmail.com, ¿sí? Con respecto a la constancia, recuerden que la constancia no se da por sesión, sino se va a dar por el total de sesiones. Son 6 sesiones. En cuanto culminen, se les da una sola constancia de participación con todas las horas acumuladas de las 6 sesiones para que les salga una constancia con mayor cantidad de horas, ¿sí? A ver, vamos entonces. Miss María Bendezú Padilla sigue diciendo no es justo, creo que nos está leyendo atrasado, creo que se le ha movido, se le debe haber movido en YouTube el cursor de arribita en el tiempo y se debe haber quedado atrás, sigue con,
Bueno,
bueno,
por lo
bueno,
menos
ya.
ya sabemos por qué se atrasó con la respuesta, pero ya cuando
Sí.
llegue esa parte va a estar contenta.
Sí, yo creo que sí, vamos a ponernos contentos también por eso. A ver, vamos aquí, ¿no está Fiorella,
No
Liz
está,
Fiorella Ramírez?
no está, parece.
No está, no está, a ver. Ya, vamos. ¿Qué hacemos con María Bendición? Ah,
Siguiente.
bueno.
1, 2, 3, go.
Y ahora es Carol Nora Centeno Soto, Miss Carol. Carol Nora Centeno Soto, Miss Carito está por ahí, por favor. Carol Nora Centeno Soto. Querida Carol, por favor. A ver, vamos a ver si Carito está por ahí, porque recién creo, ahora sí se ve en pantalla y ahí nos damos cuenta siempre de que hay un poquito de lag. Si es que Carol está por ahí.
Present, puso Carol. Aunque
¿Sí?
bueno, Carol con K en vez de con C, pero no importa. Centeno Soto.
Está. Un aplauso para Miss Carol. Congratulations, dear Carol. Ya está. Y ya tenemos las 6 becas. Creo que se está desesperando porque sigue viendo su nombre a la izquierda, Miss María Bendezú. Pero ya sabemos que está ahí. Muchas gracias, querido Juan. Ahora sí voy a compartir la pantallita. Deme un minutito, me toca a mí. Ya la envía, sí, envíela a ganadores, por favor, porque hasta que no vea su nombre a la derecha no lo va a creer. Ya, ya está. Ahora sí, repetimos rapidito. Analia Cruz Calla, Sofía Jacqueline Tumbajulca, Karin Silvana Becerra, Stephanie Sicha Aldazábal, Edith Vilches Chanca, son ganadoras y María Bendezú Padilla, ganadoras de las becas completas para el curso para profesores. Y tenemos también para el Celta con el 10% de descuento, esta beca es transferible. Recuerden, Miss Carol Centeno Soto. Listo, queridos teachers, súper, hiper agradecidos. Estamos con todos ustedes por habernos acompañado el día de hoy. Ya vamos a empezar, vamos a habilitar en un minutito, solamente vamos a continuar aquí. No nos abandones, por favor, querido Juan. Danos un minutito para la próxima semana. ¿Qué es lo que tenemos la próxima semana? No sé si Jean está ahí o ya fugó porque creo que hemos demorado. No está Ginita, pero vamos a ver qué tenemos para la próxima semana. Hacemos la invitación rapidita. Va a estar con nosotros Michael Navarro y Michael va a compartir el siguiente webinar, From Silence to Speaking. Artificial Intelligence Tools for More Interactive and Engaging Lessons. Así que vamos a ver inteligencia artificial para speaking en la próxima sesión que va a estar súper interesante a la misma hora y en el mismo canal. A las 6 de la tarde nos vemos el próximo sábado. Nos despedimos todo el super equipo de administradores. Juan, aquí te presento a todos los administradores de la comunidad English Teachers in Perú. Ahí ya puedes ver a Angelita como parte de la comunidad y a todos nuestros compañeros que están en diferentes partes del Perú. Es una comunidad grande liderada por muchos docentes porque también estamos a cargo de una comunidad súper grande en WhatsApp, en Facebook y siempre felices de poder aportar con la educación de nuestro país en el área de inglés y agradecidos sobre todo, podemos encender camaritas los administradores que estamos presentes y agradecidos sobre todo, querido Juan, con International House. Y contigo, por supuesto, por haber aceptado la invitación y por haber compartido esta propuesta súper interesante que yo estoy segura que a muchos docentes ya están, creo, viendo la forma de tratar de ver cómo contactarse con ustedes. Vamos a nosotros compartir la información también a sus correos. Mil gracias por todo lo compartido el día de hoy, por tu empatía, por la beca adicional que has dado el día de hoy para la maestra. Angelita Salazar, estamos súper orgullosos, todos tus amigos, administradores de English Teachers in Perú, de que formes parte de una organización tan importante y que puedas acompañar a Juan y seguramente la gente que trabaja ahí, súper profesional, para llevar esta propuesta a todo el país y seguir empoderando al área de inglés. Querido Juan, tal vez algunas palabras para despedir.
Muchas gracias a todos ustedes me refiero, tanto el equipo como todos los que están en el Zoom, en especial a todos los que han estado participando. Hemos estado acá más de 2 horas y hay todavía personas que están participando entusiastamente. Una parte vital de la enseñanza es hacer estas comunidades. Porque hay cosas que Ángela hace mucho mejor que yo, hay cosas que Jessica seguramente hace mucho mejor que yo, que Mariela hace mucho mejor que yo. Habrá una que otra cosa que yo hago tal vez mejor, y solamente en el trabajo en conjunto podemos ayudarnos y llegar a el mejor camino. Entonces, es muy valioso el trabajo que hacen, sigan haciéndolo y siempre pueden contar conmigo cuando lo necesiten. A mí me encanta participar en esas cosas. El año pasado estuve ahí en Tisol, Perú, en Arequipa, y este año vamos a estar por allá también en Trujillo. Tengo que comprar mis pasajes todavía. Pero ahí estaremos y será siempre un placer encontrarnos con miembros de la comunidad. Muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.
Gracias, un aplauso para ti, querido Juan, de parte de toda la comunidad. El día de hoy con ustedes ha estado Ángela Salazar, administradora de la comunidad, Jessica Carguavilca, nuestra querida administradora de la comunidad English Teachers in Perú, José Ortega, detrás de las pantallas, viendo toda la parte técnica, mi persona y nuestro querido Juan Gonzalo Iwasaki, representando International House Lima. Nos despedimos de ustedes y nos vemos en la próxima semana. Bye bye, teachers.
Bye.
Bye bye.